I'm just in the next 10 minutes going to discuss practical management for Palmoplantar pustulosis. So I'm just going to roughly go through the optimal ways to keep skin clean, common topical treatments, and then just finally end with some practical tips for everyday living. And I'll also hang around at the end for the panel discussion. So when we're talking about keeping skin clean, often what we're meaning is actually, I often find that patients tend to more overwash than underwash. So it's really important to kind of make sure that you're only washing your skin when it's needed. And we generally recommend one bath or shower for a maximum of 15 minutes once a day, and to use tepid water. And then once you've had the bath or shower, then to pat your skin dry. We recommend not using perfumed soap products, and often with that we would also include products such as Simple and Dove. They do still have quite high levels of perfumes and additives in them, so we recommend using bland emollients as soap substitutes, and I'm going to talk about emollients and moisturizers next. So to move on to treatments, the main topical treatments used in Palmoplantar pustulosis are emollients, which is what we call moisturizing creams, and also topical corticosteroids, which are generally applied to the skin in either a cream or ointment formulation, but there are some others as well. So emollients or moisturizers really are the mainstay of any good topical regime. And for those of you who like DIY, I often think it's like the primer. So before you put your top coat on or your active treatment, the emollient or moisturizer helps prepare the skin. It also helps improve symptoms, so it can decrease the dryness and cracking of plaques and sort of extra scaly skin, and also improve any symptoms of soreness and itching. We recommend applying the emollient ideally several times a day, but a really good time is whilst the skin is warm, just after you've washed. And there is evidence to show that regular use or regular effective use for good moisturizer can in some cases be steroid sparing. And so when you, in between using active or topical steroids, active treatments, you could then continue using a daily moisturizer. And I really recommend that actually, whether or not you have skin disease or not, it is a good idea, particularly in the winter and colder months, to use a daily moisturizer. As we said already, we recommend that you use it as a soap substitute as well as a leave-on moisturizer, and that's just using it as you would do a soap. So if it's a pump dispenser, just wetting your hands, applying it with the pump dispenser, rubbing it into your hands and then rinsing it off. And a question that I'm often asked is which moisturizer is the best. It's actually the one that people will put on as well, so there is no good one. It's a very individual choice. Some people like thicker, greasier moisturizers, others like lighter ones, so really it's the one that you are going to apply. So how do they work? So there's two key principles to how moisturizers, emollients work. They act by occluding the skin. So for example, you're putting a greasy ointment in and that's occluding the skin, and it also increases skin hydration through what we call a humectant effect. And final good tip is that you should never, I'll try and do it like this, you should never sort of be rubbing in creams. You always want to sort of stroke them in the direction of hair growth, and that's for any products actually that's applied directly to the skin. And so on your palms and feet, again, you can just smooth them in the air in any direction, but the answer is stroking rather than rubbing. Other good practice tips are if you have a tub, it's a good idea to decant using a spoon or a spatula. If it's a pump, that's fine. Do make sure they're stored appropriately and that lids are sort of tightly put back onto containers. In the summer and when you'd like sort of a little extra help with itch sensation, if you apply your emollient directly from the fridge, that can have a cooling sensation. If you're looking to apply an emollient and a topical steroid, then we would advise you waiting for at least 30 minutes. So we'll talk a bit later about sort of treatment regimes, but say for instance, you wake up in the morning, you have a shower, you put your emollient on. If you've got time, you may go have breakfast, have a cup of tea, and then half an hour later, put your active treatment on. And then if you've got, it's a good idea to kind of keep mini emollients in your bag if you're out and about, and then make sure you've got pots by the sink as well. And always, even if you're using the emollient as a soap substitute, it's a good idea to always try to put one on again after you've rinsed your soap substitute off your hands. Something that can be particularly effective for sort of Palmoplantar pustulosis is emollient soaks, and this is where we ask patients to soak their hands and feet for 10 to 15 minutes in a bowl with warm water. And we use Hydromol, which is just one of the moisturizers that we have commonly available. So that's a thick, greasy emollient, and you can see it in the first picture there. And what we do is we fill the bowl with warm water, and we sort of break some of the Hydromol into the warm water and mix it all together, and then ask patients to soak their hands and feet. And then when they finish soaking their hands and feet, they can remove them from the water, pat them dry, apply steroids, and then you can occlude further. So enhance the treatment effect by putting on cotton gloves or cotton socks. Generally, emollients are well tolerated. Very rarely, patients can be slightly sensitive to one or more of the ingredients. Some people do find they're messy, so then I think it's about working out a schedule that works for you, whether it's, if you use, if maybe you're out and about, you're using not such a greasy emollient, so it absorbs into the skin more easily. And then maybe when you're at home in the evenings, you can use a more greasy one. An important point to note about emollients is that they are a fire risk. So they contain paraffin, and so obviously if you've got emollients on your hands, you wouldn't want to be smoking or using barbecues or anything where there's any potential flammable risk. But also to be aware that if the emollients have soaked into any materials, they should also be washed at a high temperature as well. They can make floors or baths slippy, so it's a good idea if you are having a bath to have a bath mat in it. And not that we have to worry about it at the moment, but in hotter climates, thicker products can make temperature regulation difficult, particularly in younger babies. And folliculitis is finally, if you are using products and you're rubbing them rather than stroking them in, sometimes they can kind of enter the hair follicles and infect the hair follicles, but generally very well tolerated. So moving on to topical steroids. Topical steroids are products that are applied directly to the skin to decrease inflammation and irritation, and they come in a variety of bases. So you can have creams, ointments, lotions, or impregnated tapes or plasters. In the UK, we have 4 different strengths, but elsewhere in the world, they have different categorization. But in the UK, we call our steroids either mild, moderate, potent, or very potent. And the names can be really confusing. So you can see here, Dermavate it could look as similar strength to Umavate, but actually the Dermavate is very potent and the Umavate is moderate potency as well. And where we use steroids is very dependent on the site. So if on areas of the body where you have thinner skin, such as your face, you would want to use more milder or moderate steroids. But then for palms and soles of the feet, you can use the very strong steroids, because actually the skin there is very thick. So often you need to use something that's stronger so that it penetrates and works better. So it's, if you are given a collection of steroid preparations, it's really important that you use the right one on the right part of the body. And how much steroid you put on, we often talk about fingertip units. So that's where you squeeze out a ribbon of cream from a tube, from the top of the finger right down to the first crease, and then that amount of cream would treat the flat of an adult's hand, so 2 adult hands. Then it equates to about 0.5 grams. Probably easier to read the text that I've just written there. And then again, sometimes it is easier just to say when the steroid is glistening on the skin. So you want to apply it and still see it glistening on the skin. Side effects of steroids, again, generally well tolerated if used as directed by your healthcare professional. They should not be used on infected skin unless you've been advised to do so by a doctor. If they're used on the skin for a prolonged period of time, they can use skin thinning, but generally if you follow your healthcare professional's advice, that shouldn't be a case. Stretch marks can occur if they're used longer term, and changes of skin as well. You can get hyper and hypopigmentation as well. So once daily use is adequate, Sometimes it's a good idea to apply in the evening before bed, and some steroids do have added ingredients as well, and we've got some specials, so special products that are made up by our pharmacy, which are generally not so well available. But yeah, generally speaking, sometimes with palmoplantar disease, you may want to use a steroid which has an added ingredient. I think I'm running a bit short of time, so I'm just going to skip over this to say that there are some steroids which you can have. You can include them. We've got a very good video. So if you go to the St. John's Derm Academy patient resources, we've got a series of videos on all of these topics, which are about 2 minutes long. They're very patient friendly or sort of easy to watch as well. So I'd really recommend having a look at them. And just finally, practical top tips. It's a good idea to complete a day planner so that you know so that you can work out convenient times to apply your topical treatments. Do rest if you need to, which I know can sometimes be hard. Try, if you have disease affecting your feet, wear comfortable footwear and natural fibres. If possible, avoid wet work, so washing up and household tasks, or if you do have to use that, then put gloves, wear gloves. Avoid friction and minor injuries. You can cover deep fissures with waterproof dressings, and hydrocolloid plasters are available on Amazon, and they're quite good. And again, it's already been mentioned to do everything you can to maximize your own health. And there's lots of, we've heard a couple of times about the relationship with smoking, and you can have a look at NHS Better Health, and that gives details of how the NHS services that are available to help with smoking cessation. And if topicals don't work, there are lots of other treatments options available as well, which are available generally through hospitals. Thanks very much. There's just some pictures of our day centre.
Thanks